Good evening. Welcome to the monthly business meeting of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate those that are here with us in the commission chambers and those who are joining us remotely. For those of you here tonight, if you have a cell phone or any other device, if you'd please turn it off or to silent, we'd appreciate it. There'll be 4 opportunities for citizen input: the consent agenda, which items 1 through 12, new business items, new and old business items 13 through 19, and then a third opportunity is there's one recommendation from our planning commission tonight, and that's item number 5, and then item number 20, I believe, and then one final opportunity at the end of the business for any other item that you'd like to speak to us about that's not on tonight's agenda. The rules of our commission give a citizen 3 minutes for comment. At 2.5 minutes, the light on Ms. Spratlin's desk here will turn yellow, and that'll let you know that your time's almost up. So please finish before the 3 minutes and the light turning red so that we don't have to interrupt you. If you have any handouts tonight that you want to share with us, if you'd hand them to Mr. Berryman, he'll be glad to make sure that we get them. And let's look and see if there's somebody here tonight. He's not here yet. There was somebody I wanted to recognize tonight, and I was going to do it before the meeting, but I may interrupt our meeting to do it when he gets here. So at this time, I'll ask Ms. Spratlin to call the roll for us, please.
Dickerson. Here. Link.
Here.
Wright.
Present.
Bailey.
Present.
Present.
Dale.
Here.
Harrod.
Present.
Gertz.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes April 3rd and 11th?
I'll move.
Second.
I have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You have written communications, Ms. Spratlin?
1. Enter into the record, we have notification from Transportation and Public Works of acceptance of a street for cottages at Cannon Town.
Thank you. We will now move to our public input on the consent agenda, which are items 1 through 12. Anyone that would like to speak to those, please come to the podium and identify which item you're speaking to.
Hi, my name is Meryl Alber, and I live at 223 South Church Street in Winterville. I would like to discuss the plans for the Firefly Trail, which is item number 1 on the consent agenda. I want to start by saying I'm supportive of the trail. I'm excited to see things moving forward with the Winterville section. However, I'm concerned that the preliminary engineering drawings are not accurate with regard to ownership of one of the parcels, and I'm here to ask that it be fixed. The parcel in question, which is marked Winter Street on page 14 of the drawings, is included in the property my husband and I purchased in 1994. We've maintained, possessed, and controlled it for the last 24 years, and I do not understand why our ownership is now being questioned. I would hate to see this plan go forward as is, as I'm concerned decisions may be made on that parcel without our engagement. I therefore respectfully request that the County Commission help us to resolve this matter. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know whether you're going to want to stay for the discussion. It'll be in just a few minutes, but I think that will ease your mind.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Before we move forward to our consent agenda, the person I wanted to recognize tonight just came in, and I wanted to give a shout out to Gene Dixon, Athens Orthopedic, and all who sponsored, participated in, and attended the Athens Twilight Criterium this weekend. I've been enjoying this wonderful annual gift to our community along with over 20,000 other fans for almost 3 decades. This is my last opportunity as mayor to say thank you publicly. I particularly want to recognize one of the riders who's earned my admiration and respect. He started racing in Cuba as a junior at cycling school, moved to Miami in 1999 with his politically exiled father, and to Athens in 2006 to race with a professional team. He became an American citizen in 2008 and decided to make Athens his home after meeting his wife Ashley and the birth of their sons, Frankie, who is 6, and Maximo, who is 4. He and Ashley have opened their home to help young cyclists prepare for nationals, and he's been an inspiration and mentor to many, including my grandson, Willem Kaiser, who is now in college on a full scholarship to ride on a cycling team for SCAD. He loves to race, but more than anything, he loves to help up-and-coming young racers. Frank placed 3rd in the men's race this year for the 4th time, and I expect to keep coming until I see him place 1st. He rides his heart out, and I wanted to let him know his adopted city is proud of him. Frank Trevisio. Frank, would you come forward so our community can meet you? And I have a little token of appreciation for you. And actually, the boys, please stand up too. And if you want to come up here to do a picture, we can get somebody else to take the photo for you. I don't know if all y'all got to see that race, but it was so exciting this time. Brian and 3 other riders. Maybe about the 15th lap, which means that they catch up with and pass all the other riders. So it was a pretty awesome feat. Guys. Hey, boys, you proud of Daddy? Is this a good place to catch on? And what I have for you here, Frank, is this is a building that you pass every time you go around. And I thought you'd enjoy having that. You can put it on your Christmas tree, or you can put it on a shelf. And so, thank you for your adopted city. We're so proud of you.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna keep coming back to you. Thank you, everybody, for indulging me, because that's something, an event that I absolutely love. I actually rode in a celebrity ride, I think, in 1986 with that group. I won't tell you how it came out. So now we'll come behind the rail. Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. Now we'll come behind the rail, and Senator Commissioner that would like to take an item off. Yes, ma'am.
Items 1 and 7, please.
Okay. Do I have a motion for acceptance of the rest of them?
So moved.
Have a motion? Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor of the
Aye.
consent agenda? Okay, y'all are way ahead of me, as usual. We will now go to citizen input for our old and new business, and that will be items 13 through 19. So if there's anyone that would like to speak to any of those, this would be the time to come up and let us know. Anyone wish to speak to any of those items? They will come behind the rail, and we'll start with item number 1. And Commissioner Dickerson, would you like to address
Yes,
that one?
so I had a request from the citizen who came forward earlier, Ms. Alber, and her husband, Mr. Binder, who owned that property, that they received some more assurance about the drawings and the property. And I know our normal process is that we'll identify the path, and then we'll go back and we'll do the title searches and all that. But I can see where a citizen might be concerned, since this is sort of an unusual type drawing to come across with a road in the middle of your parcel. So what I've done is, everybody will find in front of them, I did send it out kind of late today, I'm sorry, but a commission-defined option. I highlighted the section that I added, and basically it reads on item A, approve the preliminary plans for TSPLOST 2018 Project 6, Subproject 3.1 for the Firefly Trail Project, Winterville Section, as generally shown on attachment 1, and I added, and address the additional ownership concerns related to parcel 291B007, which shows Winter Street unopened as an unopened public path. And I'd ask for everyone's support of that.
Do we have a motion?
I second
Commissioner Bynum?
I second
Have
the
a motion,
commission-defined
second.
option.
Is there any discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll now go to item number 7, which is the Shoal Creek Farms renovation, preliminary plans approval.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask that I be removed, that I be recused from making a vote on that, because it does affect my property.
Okay, thank you. So
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion for approval of this item.
we have a motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
We have one abstention already. Anybody else, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jean, will you note that abstention? Excuse me. Our next item is item number 13, and this was on consent, but it failed to make the SPLOST committee for review. And so I've decided to go ahead and put it on the agenda so that we could vote on it. We wouldn't hold the process up, because this is the time of year that we can do work on roads and bridges, and I don't want to hold this up for another month to wait for the Citizens Committee to look at it. So I'm asking that y'all go ahead and do it based on the Citizens Committee reviewing it to make sure it fits the the wording on the ballot, and if for some reason it doesn't, we'll come back to you.
So moved.
Have a motion to have second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And item number 14, I believe y'all have a CDO on that one?
Yeah,
Diane?
so.
I mean,
Yeah, we have a CDO
Sharon.
for that. So the Commission Divine option is simply to direct the proceeds to the Special Revenue Fund for Affordable Housing that we've created, since that wasn't really a designated to a specific department or something. So I'm asking for support, and Diane Bell is also on that.
and I think we had discussed that earlier, that that's where the funds would go, so.
So I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve the CDO.
Have a motion in 2 seconds.
2
So
seconds, you have to let Diane do it.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item number 15 is the Georgia Juvenile Incentive Grant. Is there any discussion on this or motion?
I move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Have a motion, second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 16 is acceptance of the FY 2018 through 2022 Transit Development Plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I will second that.
Do you have a discussion?
Just, if we could just hear from the manager to remind us what this document is and
Please.
how it's going to be used, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is really a plan that gives basic guidance and direction in evaluating future service options for transit. It is not what is called financially constrained. That is, it isn't funded at this point, and we would come back to you with recommendations in the future, or perhaps you would make recommendations yourselves from the plan that you wanted to examine that. It's got some guiding principles, I think, for the folks that are unfamiliar with the document, that we want to eliminate underperforming routes to maximize the use of existing resources. We want to expand service in new areas where feasible. We want to improve service frequency to generate new ridership and enhance service for existing riders. We want to eliminate looping route structures where feasible and maximize existing infrastructure to reduce capital costs associated with new and modified services. So there are a number of recommendations in there, a number of route alignments, and this is just a guiding document for both staff and the public and the mayor and commission to evaluate future service options.
And any of these specific routes or changes will come back to the mayor and commission, correct?
There is one caveat. There's actually 9 route revisions in the immediate implementation phase that would occur if you do accept it tonight. These are the most appropriate at this time, and these are revisions that the current budget can sustain. The other revisions that are in here will have to be implemented as funding becomes available.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this item?
We already got
We already
first
have a
and
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry, motion and second. Discussion, further discussion? No?
I think Jerry was first.
Yeah,
Ms.
I've received a number of emails about this and concern about some routes being eliminated. I know there have been public hearings about this and so forth and so on, but I don't think it's really been discussed enough in the public. I was wondering if maybe the manager has any suggestions about how we can maybe delay the elimination of these routes while we consider it further. Perhaps we could do that.
Well, certainly. We could do that, and if you would like, we can come to you with a work session presentation about what the changes are, imply. There has been a good deal of public input as a result of this process. Many folks have been consulted. But if it's the will of the commission to want to take a finer look at it, we can certainly accommodate that.
Well, I think the public deserves it, and I think we do too. So I would like to, forgive me, colleagues, make a substitute motion that we pass this plan, but delay the route changes that are proposed to us here tonight until after we've had a work session.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and second. Further discussion, Ms. Link, you had, and then we'll come back to
Yeah,
you. Chair.
I went to one of the public input sessions at the Multimodal Center, and it was very helpful. They had an interactive program that showed the old route and the new route, and lots of demographic data of, jobs within a half mile and homes within a half mile, and even income status. And I feel like that's something that could be very helpful if it were presented to the commission. We are getting some emails from folks who are concerned about the rerouting. I feel like for the most part, these routes are really helpful. I mean, these more direct routes, I think they'll get more people on the bus and make for more efficient rides for a lot of folks. I'm really excited about that Whitehead Road route, and there's some better connectivity in the east side, which will be really helpful. But I think that, I feel like we kind of could use a little work session public presentation on it, because I don't think that multimodal, that input session was very well attended.
Mr. Kurtz. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey, and then Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any problem with delaying this so we can have more public input, but I wonder if Jerry's motion is really feasible to pass it and yet wait on the changes. Maybe we should do it all at once. I'm just thinking out loud
Our county attorney.
that maybe we just table it, have some more public input, and then whatever we come up with, approve it at that point. Approve it or decline it at that point.
Well, if I might,
Yes, please.
if we could ask y'all to accept the transit development plan, that's one action. And in accepting it, not approving it, you're saying that, okay, we understand what's in this document, and we will approve changes as they are brought forth, which would allow what Jerry's asking, I think. I just do want to caveat this, this shouldn't be an issue. I would ask that you consider going ahead and approving the transit development plan and allowing the changes on Sanford Drive to take place, because the bridge at Sanford Drive at the stadium is going to be closed.
Yeah.
And we've worked this out with the university. We're changing our routing to go East Campus to Baldwin to Lumpkin. And there shouldn't be any controversy or issues with that. In fact, UGA is very much on board.
I would amend my motion then to accept the transit development plan, delay the implementation of changes except for the Sanford Drive route. And I want to just add, I feel, and perhaps it's my own fault, I feel uninformed about this plan. I didn't go to those public hearings, and so I'm not sure. I just need more information myself.
Mr. Bierman, do you see any issue with the motion as Mr. Smith expressed it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Bailey?
I think it was explained very well, so I don't really have a problem with it.
Okay. Mr. Herod?
I guess a comment. Anytime we change a route, somebody's going to be unhappy about it. And I think what we need to do is to look at what does this do for the system as a whole, and if we need to give people an extra little bit of time to weigh in, that's fine. But I think it's important to think about the system as a whole, and it does very clearly say in this document, recommended service adjustments and new service alignments offer opportunities to the highest concentrations of disadvantaged population within the service area. And we've talked a long time about having our transit system do a better job of serving the disadvantaged population in the community. So I think it's important to bear that in mind. The question I had for the manager is, if we are to delay this, when is the earliest we could have a work session on it?
Well, staff knows the reasons to do this backwards and forwards. The only thing I think that you might consider is just how busy our work sessions are the next couple of months. So
Yeah, the next one's pretty bad, or pretty big.
I'm assuming it would make sense to implement this at least before June 1 and the new budget goes into effect. Or is that an incorrect assumption?
Well, these 9 can be accommodated within our current budget, so I don't believe there's budget implications that would need to be built into the future acceptance. These were, I would characterize these as kind of low-hanging fruit on improvements. There wasn't anything major, but to some people it might be major. But I don't think we need to assimilate all this before June 1st. Having said that, we've been anticipating approval. We've been ramping up for this, so we are going to have some cost of delay in, changing. But we can, if y'all would like a little more time with it, we can come in July, or we can come earlier if you want.
Blaine, I know our May is really full, but would this be a lengthy presentation, do you think? Do you think we could work it in? Or
Well-
are y'all willing to be at a May meeting a little bit longer?
There's 8 routes, that we need to walk you through.
Well, I think it depends on whether it's a work session for us or whether it's having more public hearings, because those are two entirely different things.
Well,
And the
work
work
session's
session
what
for
we're
us
in.
will be a fairly short affair, I would imagine.
Just to be clear, I'm asking for a work session. I have no doubt the staff's done an excellent job with this. It's my own lack of understanding that I'm trying to address here so that I can make an informed decision.
And of course, hopefully our media will cover the meeting tonight and cover some of this, and then again, the work session, and that will help get the word out to the public. So, okay. Mr. Gertz, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it. I mean, having looked at conceptually what was planned to move to these more point-to-point routes rather than the looping ones, I think is the right thing to do for efficiency, and I think it's going to really yield a better result systemically. So I'm excited about that, and certainly I'm happy to spend a little bit more time just making sure that everybody feels the same excitement. I would rather have that work session earlier rather than later so that these could be implemented certainly by the end of the summer before students return in the fall, so that when we get that large volume of new riders, that they're introduced to these new routes rather than something that would be in September or October. And so if that could be a May or June work session, I'd appreciate that greatly.
I tend to agree with you, Kelly, and that's why I was asking if we could pull it into May. It will make for a long work session, but
Well,
I'm trying to remember what all's on June.
a good many as well.
Yeah.
So I think Andy has a good point, Commissioner Harrod, that we should maybe go ahead and have the public meeting in advance of that so people are aware of it. You will have heard any additional comments. We had 7 public meetings up to this point, but we can have one specifically about these route changes. We can do that in advance of the work session, so that's extra information for you.
Mr. Neesmith, is what you're trying to do inform the public more, or yourself? 'Cause-
I like Blaine's plan a lot. I think that the route changes kind of got buried in the conversation
Okay.
as far as the public is concerned.
So that means we'll have a public hearing
Public
and
hearing and
a work
or
session.
a public meeting of some
Public
kind.
meeting,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. I thank you for that.
Yep. Well, people that are going to be affected need to be able to
Yeah.
understand it, yeah. Ms. Wright, and then Ms. Link, you have your
I think you might have just asked my question. I was trying to understand if this was more of a marketing, promotional, more time for that, and it sounds like the way you shook your head. Oh, was that it's more, as well as collecting information that might be obtained with increased marketing of this promotion?
May I answer?
Please do.
My belief, what this is for, is to inform the public so that if and when we make these decisions, they understand it.
And we can
And we
answer.
can defend it.
And we can answer too. Okay.
Okay, Ms. Link.
Blaine, do you have on hand the number of people that attended the presentations at the Multimodal Center?
I don't, but what I had considered doing in all of this is to kind of reconstruct the public process up to this point and share that with y'all as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see those input sessions were drop-in. They were kind of held at the back end of the Multimodal Center. I had trouble kind of finding them, and I knew where I was going. So, yeah, I think it would be helpful to have a more public meeting in a more centralized public location, because those were during the day. Some people might have been catching buses and had to work.
Parking's an issue there, too, people coming in cars.
Yeah, I think another more widely publicized meeting would be helpful. And, speaking of marketing, I want to talk about the need for a marketing professional with transit. I mean, we're going to have these new routes. We're going to have to get the word out somehow to folks that these are happening. We talked about advertising on buses. We might need to work that into the work session a little bit. Even getting some interns or something who can capitalize on social media. So, yeah, I just think there's a real need there, and I know Transit repeatedly has requested that position. I'd like to see us make it happen.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just want to make sure that we capture what we're voting on, and to be clear that the routes, it would be more than one route, wouldn't it, Manager Williams, that's going to help us with the rerouting that has to be done in coordination with campus? There's more than one route that's solving that, right? And I just want to make sure that those routes are moving forward, because that needs to happen.
Well, if we could just, perhaps just say, any routes that enable,
That
the
are
Sanford.
solving that.
Yes.
If we can make sure that that is in the motion.
Happy to make that change to my motion.
You want to restate your motion, Jerry?
Yes, let me give it a shot. My motion is to accept the Transportation Development Plan and delay the implementation of any changes, except for the routes that are affected by the Sanford Drive changes at the University of Georgia, and to have a public hearing before we have a work session.
Okay. Everybody understand it? Y'all ready to vote? All in favor?
And we need a second.
I'll second
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, I thought we had a second.
What we do now, Jared just
I'll
seconded.
second it.
Jerry second, okay. Have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Okay, now, our next one is the Government Operations Committee bus stop improvements. And would you like to walk us through that, Commissioner Perry?
Sure. So Government Operations Committee looked at the issue of the bus stop improvement program, and we spent some time talking about this over a number of different meetings. Our staff have also obtained a not insubstantial grant from, I forget whether it was federal or state now, but that needs to be spent. There are deadlines on that. So the Government Operations Committee spent some time talking about this, and we have some recommendations that I think will improve the numbers of bus stops, the quality of the bus stops. It gives us some art bus shelters, and I think overall it will improve the experience of using Athens Transit. So I make a motion that we approve the recommendations in the report as written.
Second. Have a motion, second, any further discussion? Ms. Wright?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I'm happy to see that bike storage was included in your all's discussion and on the list too, because that had come forward as a recommendation from a previous study that we did for those people who are cycling to the bus stop and don't necessarily need the cycle to go on the bus with them. And so that the more storage we have for those at the stops, the better. So I support it.
Yeah, I want to thank staff for the document that had the list of all the stops that are going to be improved. I actually had a lady just this weekend asking me about one of those stops and telling me that it needed improvements, and I'm glad to know that it's on this list. So if anybody out there wants to know which stops are being improved, just contact one of us. We can let you know.
Any further discussion? Mr. Newsom?
Yeah, I still have heartburn spending 30% more for art stop than a non-art stop, but the maps helped a lot, being able to see the impact of these upgrades even for the level 1, about what they're going to be in level 2. So I'll support this.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to say for the benefit of the audience that should you approve this tonight, we'll go ahead and start placing orders for the amenities, and those things will be, whether there's the standard shelters, and some of the standard amenities can be implemented within the next 90 to 120 days. Right. So folks will see some changes in the near term.
That's good.
A little bit longer for the art shelter.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item number 18, we're going to keep on hold for another month. Our staff's working on a revised report, and it was not quite ready for us to look at tonight, so we'll have it on there for the next month. And that's the red light camera program. Under new business, do I have a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Okay. You're the new Harry tonight. Thank you. Have a motion second. All in favor of suspending the rules? Any opposed? Okay, we're under suspension of rules. And we have one item, and this is our appointments to boards and authority. And the mayor and commission met and interviewed people for several hours last week. And we have the following recommendations.
Madam Mayor, maybe I missed it. I think we need to vote to approve it before we announce it.
I thought we did.
I thought we voted
No,
to
we've suspended the rules.
suspend the rules.
We voted to suspend the rules, and what do you saying we need to do?
We need to approve
Typically,
the
we
list.
vote and approve the list before we announce it.
Okay. I have a
I will make a motion to approve the list.
And I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I was making it as a nominating committee report, but we've already voted on it, so now I'll just announce it. Our airport authority, we are appointing Robert Miles to a 4-year term that will expire in 6/30 of '22. Classic Center Authority, Ryan Brinson is a reappointment for a 4-year term expiring 6/30 of '22. Historic Preservation Commission, Heather Fletcher, 3-year term expiring in 6/30/21. John Hogue, a 3-year term expiring 6/30 and '21. And Missy Wilson, 3-year term expiring 6/30/21. Planning Commission, Kelly Ogunsaya, 5-year term expiring 6/30 of '23. And Lucy Rowland is a reappointment for a 5-year term expiring 6/30 of '23. And for those that are coming back for reappointments, thank you for the work you've already done. And for those that are coming on new, thank you for the work we're about to ask you to do. And we really could not do the work that y'all elect us to do without our citizen help, because we need more brains than those behind the rail up here.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just to say that we had such incredibly competent, enthusiastic applicants this time. It was some amazing people. It's too bad we couldn't give them all something to do.
Well, we
I
probably
hope they'll
will
come
eventually
back.
if they'll
Yeah,
keep coming back.
right.
Because, we have quite a number of board appointments. And when's the next round, Jean? It's coming up. Latter part of this month. We'll be making some more appointments. So I urge citizens that are interested to go on our website and see what's available and put your name in the hat, because, again, we do need all this good advice that we're getting from our citizens, so thank you. We're now at the point where we have just one item from our Clarke County Planning Commission, and, okay, no one signed up for the 10 minutes, so anyone who wishes to speak to item number 19, we come to the podium for a 3-minute.
Thank you, Mayor Denson. Commissioners, my name is Bob Smith with Smith Planning Group, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the property owner, Greg Hart, in this rezone request. As you know, the planning staff has recommended approval of this plan development, and the project has earned the unanimous recommendation of approval by the Planning Commission. And during the time between the last Planning Commission meeting and your agenda-setting meeting, we were able to address the condition regarding the addition of a tree island in the proposed parking lot and the clarification regarding the ADA parking space. We revised the plans, and the plans are now part of the record and are included in your packet tonight. The improvements proposed in this plan development will certainly enhance the existing conditions of the subject parcels and enhance the surrounding area. By combining the two parcels as proposed, we are able to reduce the number of driveways accessing Cedar Shoals Drive from two drives to one single drive, improving the safety of pedestrians and reducing the likelihood of vehicular accidents. The only recommended condition remaining on the project is the requirement to construct a deceleration lane. Fortunately, the wording of the condition was revised at the Planning Commission meeting to include the words, "if required by the Transportation and Public Works Department." Although Cedar Shoals Drive is a local street, ACC relies on GDOT standards for auxiliary lanes such as deceleration lanes. This project falls well below the threshold requiring a deceleration lane, and I'm optimistic that we'll be able to reach a conclusion that a deceleration lane will not be necessary. Therefore, we are in agreement with the condition as modified by the Planning Commission. And I'll be able to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else wish to speak to this item? And this is the request from Smith Planning Group for GRREA LLC for rezoning a single-family residential mixed-density residential limited overlay parcel to a mixed-density residential planned development parcel on 2.51 acres known as 1804 to 1826 Cedar Shoals Drive. And I believe we have an ordinance, Mr. Behrman. I think I'm going to make you repeat everything I just said.
Parcels of land totaling approximately 2.581 acres located at 1804 to 1826 Cedar Shoals Drive from RS8 RM Limited single-family residential, mixed-density, limited overlay to RM1 PD, mixed-density residential plan development, and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Perryman. I'm not sure whether this is in Andy or Sharon's district.
Mine.
Andy's. I'm calling Andy first. and I'll
Good,
get to
that's
Mr.
what I was
Dixon.
going to ask.
So we talked about this at our agenda setting meeting. I think it's a good development for that end of Cedar Shoals Drive, and so I'm going to make a motion to approve with the remaining condition, but I do have a question for our planning director. Brad, so I know that the deceleration lane may or may not be necessary, and based upon what we just heard, probably not, but if it is, I know that we'd had some discussion about what the topography out there and what that might mean for the sidewalk. Do we have any update on that, or how that would be handled?
It's not been designed yet, so we don't have an update on it. I mean, the sidewalk would obviously remain, and it would have to be worked into whatever final design. I talked to our Public Works Director this afternoon as well, and they were in the process of looking at those standards to determine whether or not it's going to have to be put in. But
Okay.
the sidewalk will have to stay. It would be a modification that may require some additional grading if there is, in fact, ultimately a need to put it in,
And possibly a retaining wall? Yes.
possibly.
Okay, so that would be included in,
It would be part of the construction cost of the development.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
Mr. Neesmith.
Andy, would you clarify your motion? Which conditions are you including?
My understanding from what the petitioner said is that the tree island condition has been met and the ADA parking condition has been met, is that correct? And so the only one that remains is the deceleration lane would be constructed on Cedar Shoals Drive for the proposed driveway if required by the Athens-Clarke County Transportation and Public Works Department.
There's only one condition remaining as part of the ordinance. The other two have been resolved.
Okay.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This concludes our scheduled business, so if anyone would like to speak to us about anything that was not on tonight's agenda, this would be the time to come to the podium and take your 3 minutes to talk to us.
Hi, my name is Kristen Morales. Sorry, I don't have a purse with me. 338 Satula Avenue. I was at the special call meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission last night, and where they talked about the two new proposed historic districts. And it was really cool. I also live in a historic district. It's nice to see these things happen. What perplexed me, though, was the meeting, and the historic districts are the result of a process that began a year ago at a meeting such as this, when it was decided that there would be a moratorium in the neighborhood because of outside development pressures. Not only were Castalia and Millage Circle discussed, but also the neighborhood of Reese Street and West Hancock was also discussed. And there was also a demolition delay put on that neighborhood as well. And so I'm confused why we're now about 2 weeks away from that demolition moratorium ending and nothing has happened at that neighborhood, and yet the 5 Points neighborhoods get their historic district. So as a side note, I really like maps. I think maps are really cool. So I was at the UGA Maps Library today, and I found a map from the 1950s, and it was called Negro Neighborhoods of Athens. And so I took this map and I scanned it, and I started with our current zoning map. I know you can't see this, but I will happily email this to all of you guys later on today. So we have our current zoning of the West Hancock neighborhood, and I overlaid on top of that the traditional Negro neighborhood that was listed on this map from the 1950s. It's fascinating because if you look at the boundaries of this map that was noted in the 50s with the zoning, it lines up almost perfectly. And it's really weird. Like, why would the zoning of these single-family houses that are contiguous with Cobham, right down the street, also single-family houses that are single-family zoned, be different? And I know that A $24,000 study is not going to solve all the problems that that Athens has created in neighborhoods such as the Reese Street and West Hancock neighborhood, but at least it's a start. And we have a long way to go to gain the trust of the people that live in this neighborhood, but at least doing something is better than nothing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Anyone else wish to speak to us tonight?
Hi, my name is Julie Darnell. I live at 470 Cobb Street. It came to my attention recently that the plans to move the county extension office to the west side might be being revisited. And if that is the case, I was wondering if you might consider looking at other more centrally located locations, such as those on the either centrally to Athens or to the east side. East side would actually be more preferable to the extension office over the west side due to the proximity to agricultural services, the botanical gardens for classes, and other ACC services that the extension office collaborates with. And additionally, most of the schools and gardens that the extension office supports are located on the east side. That's pretty much it. But thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Darnell.
Hey, I'm Karina Gallagher. I live at 325 Bray Street. So I am a mom of 2 awesome boys. And we live in Athens, where my children go to school with children who they know are a part of gangs, or who have access to guns, or who regularly get in fights. And those children are left with nothing during the summer, nothing to do during the summer. So in Athens, we used to have this thing called Grand Slam, which was put in place to prevent teen gang violence or kids joining gangs. And then somewhere along the way, we defunded it. And I think right now we get to see the backside of prevention. So if we aren't preventing, then we end up with situations like Athens is currently facing. So I just want to go through some stuff that has currently been done so that y'all don't have to do a whole bunch of work. So we've already got people talking about Grand Slam. We've looked at the data that is accessible online about Grand Slam, and according to county documents, teen violence was down 65% when Grand Slam was in place. Reviewed data recently released for about the gangs in Clarke County, which was released earlier this year at an event at Trump's. We got some candidates involved. Harris Sims said that he would be the champion for the reviving of Grand Slam. Richie Knight said that he would talk to some private funders and help us find some money for it. So I'm not asking the county for any money. We reached out to local businesses and nonprofits so that they can talk about what their role will be. We got a lot of support from community members and parents who just want to be volunteers, so that saves us the cost on staff. I've already talked to several police officers who are engaged in the community, some SROs who already know the students and they're on board. What else have we done? And I know a whole bunch of youth who are willing to participate. The only thing I'm asking y'all to do is give us space. So if the community is coming together to say, we've got volunteers, we'll find the money, we just need space, I'm just asking that the county gives us some space this summer so that we can do 2 events, and then just remind all y'all decision makers that prevention actually works, and this is something that needs to be all summer long.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you for all that work.
Good evening, Broderick Flanagan, 215 Gresham Streets. I too want to speak in support of the bringing back the Grand Slam. I was actually a participant in the Grand Slam, being born and raised here in Athens. It was something that I look forward to during the summer months. And, the speaker before me just gave you, a plethora of reasons of why it was positive and preventative. But two, I want to speak to as well, like with the data given about the crime and the gangs and the youth violence going on. I want to caution us too how we, tell that narrative, because we speak a lot about the certain neighborhoods. When I was attending a meeting where the Chief Freeman was giving a presentation, and someone at the meeting asked about the downtown area and the statistics there, with that being the highest concentrated of crime in our community or our city, and it wasn't even on the list. Some of the neighborhoods that were on the list, where the crime is happening, happen to be predominantly African American neighborhoods. So I think we should be, careful how we spin that narrative in our community. As well as I would like to speak about neighborhoods and housing a little bit, from doing some door-to-door campaigns with trying to form a neighborhood association, I've been learning a lot, about neighborhoods and about certain needs in certain neighborhoods. And, as people try to get together and organize, it's difficult when you're working with working families and working people. And these things take time, so it's a process. But I am grateful for, our planning department and staff that have been very helpful. But I've met with several residents that live in the East Athens area, and as well as the Hancock Reed Street area. And people are really trying to figure out, what is the best way to move forward, and working with the government as well. So these things, they do take time, and yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Broderick.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all again. I hope you're having a good evening. I keep coming back to this same question from when I asked the national EMS owner if my son or a member of my family is... I'm sorry, Sam Raffle, Athens, Georgia, 230 Spalding Circle. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I knew you, so I didn't even notice that you didn't do it.
Yeah. When I asked the owner of national EMS if my son or a member of my family is having a life-threatening emergency, can you assure me that the ambulance designated to cover our zone would not have been pulled to run a non-emergent transfer? He said no. And I just want to make sure that everybody in here realizes that that's the same answer that applies to you and your family, your child, your grandchild. And what we are asking is very simple. We're just asking for transparency from this company. We want people facing time-sensitive, life-threatening emergencies to not have to tell their emergencies twice. That can be life-threatening in and of itself, as we heard on the November 28, 2017 tape involving the 6-week-old baby in respiratory distress. We're asking we want protected 911 ambulances that won't be pulled out of their zones to run non-emergent transport, so a separate division. And I recently learned that National separates 911 and their non-emergency division when asking for their subsidy, and then they're blended to make more profit through the year, and then they're separated again at the end of the year to ask for their subsidy, and then they're blended again. And that's in the outsourcing agreement near the top. I can share that with you. But examples of counties that run protected 911 EMS include, but are not limited to the public systems in Oglethorpe County, Madison County, Franklin, Hart, Stevens, Elbert, Gwinnett, Banks, Habersham, Greene, and Wilkes County, to name a few. All of the counties served by the private company Grady EMS, to include Atlanta, Baker, Baldwin, Ben Hill, Brooks, Clay County, Decatur, Hancock, Mitchell, Pike, Quitman, Randolph, and Worth County. And to quote from the Grady EMS website, our 911 operation uses ALS and dedicates these units to emergency transports only. They do that for a very obvious reason. We use a separate division to transport non-emergency calls, ensuring that our 911 fleet is available and in service where and when they are needed. So lastly, I just want to bring your attention to this idea of downgrading calls. If y'all remember back to when National presented to the work session, they talked about what percentage of calls that came in through 911 that they downgraded. And I just wanted to make a couple of observations about that. So downgrading is when somebody calls 911 for a medical emergency and the call is downgraded based on what the person is telling the dispatcher. So it's downgraded to a no red light and siren call. First of all, according to their own documentation, which again, National's documentation, I can show you that should
Sam,
only
can you try to wind it up because you're out of time?
add an average of 43 seconds to their response. And secondly, it's extremely dangerous, as evidenced by the recent American Airlines flight where a young woman was experiencing symptoms that a doctor on board initially diagnosed as being consistent with a panic attack. That's a classic call that would have been downgraded in our system. This woman recovered temporarily, but soon went into cardiac arrest and died on the plane. So,
thank you, Sam.
thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak with us?
Hi, my name is Alice, and I live at 870 North Chase Street.
What's your last name, Alice?
It's Alice Hilton. And I wanted to speak in support of extending the Reese Hancock, the Reese moratorium. Reese Hancock is not my neighborhood. Like, I didn't grow up there. It's not my community. I grew up in 5 Points, which I feel like is an area that, you know, the local government works well for 5 Points. But I have been spending a lot of time in Reese Hancock, knocking on doors in the past few months, and just talking to people who live there. And one of the kind of recurring themes that comes up in those conversations is this distrust for local government, and sort of difficulty with navigating like historical context, and like current inequalities. And I also, you know, walking down the other side of Hancock, it's really kind of uncanny because it almost looks like the ghost of Christmas Future, you know, where that was a historically black area. I talked to sorry, I'm really nervous right now for some reason. But I talked to one woman who lived in that area who said, you know, like 60 years ago, these were all black homeowners, and we all knew each other. And now walking down that street, it's almost all students, and like you can see it, like it just looks like a student area. And I really think that with the moratorium expiring, that's going to pretty quickly creep over to the other side of Hancock and Reese Hancock. And so I think it's a really complicated issue, and it's a touchy area, but I also think that what happens in that space, in those neighborhoods, is really going to be a test of how we, moving forward, both make room for and like accommodate UGA students while also really like caring for our long-term residents and like especially black residents of Athens. And so I know that the moratorium isn't like, it's not a solution, it doesn't fix everything, but it at least gives more time. And I think that it's going to take time to kind of come up with the sort of creative solutions that this calls for. And then I just also wanted to say that I've talked to a lot of people there who really love that neighborhood, who are like, I grew up here and all of my friends live here, and that's been like really touching and warming. And I feel like those pockets of Athens where people like love where they're from and like care for it and feel rooted to it, like we have to take care of those. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, good evening. My name is Bob Gadd. My address is 134 Milton Road in Winterville. I'm here to concur with what Sam was talking about the EMS. This is an ongoing issue that we've been dealing with for a while. I'm still a medic, and the times I do talk to national employees, their business model remains the same, where they'll vacate a zone. When I was working there, they not only vacate a zone where no ambulances would be, but the whole county. So this is an ongoing problem, and I still think it needs to be addressed with some of the issues that Sam mentioned about more transparency, considering moving dispatch to Clarke County so that there would be transparency. And now when you call 911, you have to tell your emergency twice, because you'll call Clarke County, hang on, I need to transfer you. And that extends the response time, plus it makes it confusing for the caller. And if any of you have heard the tape that Sam was referring to about the baby that died, then they'll surely convince you something needs to be changed. Also, when I was working at National, I suggested a 911 only division, and that was turned down because it was too expensive for them. And again, there are other options out there. The county I work for has less than 30,000 people. They manage to run 4 24-hour stations. And there are other private companies that do only do 911 response. So thanks for y'all's help on this. I know it's been an ongoing issue, and we're going to keep coming back until it's no longer an issue. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Ian Michael Casey. I'm not going to give you all my address.
I'm sorry. Can you give me your name again?
Ian Michael Casey.
Okay.
I've been a resident here of 37 years, and I'm kind of doing a parallel run for mayor. We're not going to discuss that tonight, but what I am going to discuss is the city has a 40.6 poverty rate. If we transferred that to a national level, we would have 141 million people across America in poverty. I've been here for 40 years. I love this town. I'm totally disgusted and ashamed. I have people that come from this country that come to the Methodist convention, and there's a lot of poor people here. I've watched, no offense, ma'am, you've been mayor twice. Glenn Looney's been mayor twice. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. The people who are running for mayor who did qualify for this race say I have no constituency. Well, my constituency lives at Nully B and Paldo and Rolling Ridge and Parkview. And I've talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of people of color in this town, and they don't feel like they're being treated right. And I am not going to win this election. That's why I didn't qualify. I did not pay the $1,300 fee. I did a parallel thing just to see what support I could get. I got enough votes, Mr. Gertz, to affect this election. Mr. Sims, Ms. Link, I am not involved or interested in getting political power, but what I am telling you, we have a major problem here in Athens, Georgia. We should be absolutely ashamed and disgusted that we have 40.6% of our citizens living in poverty. And I know some of the wealthiest people in town. I've owned numerous businesses here. I've had multiple homes here. I've owned large tracts of lands here over the years. Something needs to be done on this level. And it's nice that you're all talking about widening sidewalks and putting flowers on the loop and doing this and doing that. But I believe that we need to invest in people over property. We really do. These people that talked about the gangs, I personally have known 20 people who have buried their children in this city. I've talked to Scott Freeman and numerous of his officers. They tell me there's no opioid problem here. I said, so the President of the United States and Jeff Sessions says there's an opioid problem, but the officers of this town tell me there isn't one. When I have parents contacting me from the University of Georgia who tell me their freshman, sophomore, and junior children are dying of fentanyl at the university, have we had that? Last question. How many students, there's the Me Too movement in Georgia, which I'm trying to start at the University of Georgia for the young women who have been sexually assaulted in this town. How many students at the University of Georgia in the last 10 years have gone to prison for sexual assault at any of the frat houses? There are people here in this room who have sat in meetings with me with women from 18 to 55, 18-year-old freshman students to women of 55, and the same frat houses came up. I said, start a Me Too UGA movement and list this. We have serious problems in this town, bigger than widening our sidewalks, and that's basically all I've got to say. But deal with the poverty issue first. Seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to talk to us?
Hello, my name is Imani Scott Blackwell. I live at 870 North Chase Street. I want to start by apologizing because this may be incoherent. I had 2 finals today and I haven't eaten anything and I'm kind of running on fumes. But it is very important to me that I echo the concerns of Karina regarding the Grand Slam program. Now that I'm running for the Board of Education, I've been looking a lot about the data regarding youth and student achievement in this community, and a program like that addresses so many different issues, because when you don't have children idle over the summertime, they have the ability to kind of not go into that brain drain, brain dump, and be prepared for the fall to come back with that same kind of momentum of being active throughout the summertime. And additionally, it provides the health aspect, which is a cost of the whole community, by keeping children physically active throughout the summertime. We have parts of my school district in particular where schools will have in their community issues with 30 to 40% of families reporting issues with high blood pressure, issues with high cholesterol. These are all things that ultimately cost our community that could be rectified by just investing in our children. It's a long-term investment. The issues that they have ongoing, when unaddressed, those things kind of become more costly in the end of not making those things a priority. And I think that we also don't want to set the precedent where community members need to organize plans on their own to prioritize the children and raise funds on their own to prioritize Black youth in particular. I think it is important that though she did the work to say that she has that funding, it may not be a bad idea to show that the community and our local government also care about the kids in that way. So at least being able to supplement and definitely providing the space. But I think it would be important and just kind of a kind gesture to show the community that we do care, and that we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is and recognizing that young people are important and worth investing in this community. I also wanted to second the concerns of Kristen Morales and Alice Hilton regarding the Reese Street area, and making sure that that is prioritized, that we have that on the agenda and are discussing whether or not that moratorium will be extended. And I suppose since it's in 2 weeks, the ending now, it'll have to be reinstated. But I think that is very important because those people have been a part of this community for a long time, and they also deserve to be prioritized, I think, over developers and people that are trying to make money. This is a community, and we want to foster that concept that people feel like it is a community and not that you can just be displaced because other people move in and have more money and want to make more money on top of that. I don't think that is a way to treat people kindly. So thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts. Anyone else?
Hey, my name's Jody Barber. I live at 958 Reese Street. I'm from Athens. I would also like to extend the moratorium on Reese Street, and also I would like to move towards single family housing at some point. That would be nice, because I feel like the loss of the neighborhood has to do with me not knowing who my neighbors are, you know. And for the most part, I do know everybody, like Miss Sarah, Miss Beatrix, you know, everyone on that street. But there are houses where people just come and go, and there's no recourse. Like, and I see problems, even with child neglect, and because there's you know, nobody that actually lives in these buildings that's consistent, you know, I can't address that. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I've had some allergies today, but I would like to say that you know, second what Alice Hilton said, and you know, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Okay, whoever wants to speak, come on forward.
Either way, I was going to go next. You can still go next. Anyway, I was here last month.
Tell us your name again, please.
Aaron Gregory, 293 South Finley Street. Diane Bell, you are currently, I'm in your district. What I like to do is thank you. Last month when I was here, I introduced the ordinance, parallel ordinance, as far as doing what we got done in Atlanta and Savannah and a couple of other cities and around the country as far as the decriminalization goes. That's a very important issue. And as far as me thanking you, when I mentioned it last time, You were able to go on the record as far as what your position was. And again, thank you. I posted that online. Did you go on Facebook? Did you see that? I suggest you do not. It wasn't positive, and I'm not here to ridicule you. It's just not what I do. I know I only have 3 minutes, and that's not enough time to talk about this issue, so I'm not going to get up here and tell you that cannabis is going to cure cancer in 5 minutes. But it's going to do a lot of good for the community if we can keep people out of jail. You know, like Ian Casey was up here earlier. I'm not even going to tell you about how horrible it is as far as, you know, the destruction of lives and, you know, people going to their grandmothers and their mothers and their friends and their family because they don't have the money to get out of jail. And they don't have the money either, and they got to co-sign for their children. I'm not even going to all that. The only thing I want to do is, the last time I was here, the thing that disturbed me, other than the argument you made, was it wasn't a cogent argument. It was illogical. I'm so sorry for saying that. It just didn't work. But what was disturbing, it was extremely disturbing, is you said that as long as you're mayor, that's not going to come up for a vote. And I want to apologize to Mr. Gertz over here, and I don't see Sims, but I think I might owe him an apology as well. I don't know if this is an autocracy where none of these people have any influence whatsoever over what is placed on the agenda. And none of these people do. I have over 800 plus names in this position, on this petition right here. And that was only me going out 3 days. There's overwhelming support for this. 15,000 people, I think, is the number of people that you won this most recent election by. I have 1,000 here. After this election on the 22nd, from what I understand, the next mayor isn't going to be in office until January. How many names do I need to get on this petition before it's not just you that matters? It's everybody in this community that matters. It's me, it's all these people, it's these people right here. We don't have a king, we don't have a queen.
Sir, your time is up, and I don't debate.
I'd like to invite you to my house. I have 3 minutes is not enough time. I'd like to invite you to my house. I'd really like to talk to you about this and just have a discussion. Also, Diane, you're in my district. I think that'd be great. Just sit down and talk.
Sir, your time is up. You can call my office and make an appointment if you'd like to come in.
I want to apologize to you because apparently you do not have any influence whatsoever on this. When I wrote that post, it's okay.
No, it's not okay. I'm sorry. Your time is up.
I want to apologize to you because I did post on there that it was you that took a part in this. I understand how you didn't take a part in this.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the mayor and commission?
My name is Agatha Coggins, and I am not a resident of Clarke County. I am a resident of Oglethorpe County. And the whole issue of decriminalization on the question of marijuana affects me also, although I am not a resident of Oglethorpe County. How does it affect me? It affects me because of the penalties that are now exacted against individuals who have what I consider minuscule amounts of marijuana in their possessions. It causes not only increased resources and monies to maintain these individuals who are apprehended and incarcerated, it is far more economically, how should I put it? Economically reasonable not to incarcerate these people because it costs too much to maintain their existence. Not only that, but it causes unbearable hardships on their families also. So, with that being said, and with the short amount of time that I am allowed to speak to you today, I ask that you seriously consider the idea of putting this question on the agenda for the people to decide what they want. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Emma Seneca Willis. I'm a Clarke County resident at 401 Townview Place. And I believe it is Commissioner Wright's district, as I was recently corrected. What I am hearing consistently from other citizens of Athens is a concern of a loss of a feeling of community. We just had a report come out talking about gang issues. Karina has pointed out an excellent solution to that, a preventative measure that if it remained in place could have continued to help. It was taken away. She has also pointed out that there are lots of members of the community from different areas, businesses, nonprofits, and so forth, that are willing to step up and assist this program, Grand Slamming, coming back. The idea that this is even a question after we've issued a report that says this is the problem is strange to me, that we wouldn't even consider or that it's not getting more attention. The Reese Street community is once again another place where people are talking about the loss of community. I was not born in Athens. My family came here when I was 14. I am a former Washingtonian, much like Commissioner Link, who has decided that this is my home. This is what the community that matters to me and I care about. So I would just encourage leadership to look consistently at the issues people are putting forward, and ultimately they're about community and how Athens is no longer the community that it was when I arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
I'm Claire Bolton, 255 Oglethorpe Terrace. I'm going to keep it short. I don't have a monologue for y'all. So I wanted to just say that I also support extending or reinstating the moratorium on the Reese Street corridor, or West Hancock corridor. I think we probably all know it's a problem that working class African American neighborhoods have typically in this town been zoned differently, right, for heavier commercial use than the whiter neighborhoods like the Prince Avenue corridor or Five Points. And so I think it's really time, like this is just one example of a small thing that we can do to keep, working for justice. And I know we care about affordable housing a lot on this commission too. So specifically, it really matters. It's just good affordable housing policy to protect in-town neighborhoods that are working class like that. So it's kind of like 5 Points has a lot of those protections already by virtue of like wealthier people living there. So I know we want to encourage residential density in Athens overall, but this also has to be done really carefully. And so I just wanted to encourage all to get together and consider putting that moratorium back on the agenda and also extending it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to us? Okay, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail, and now is the time that I and the commissioners bring things to the commission, and I get the first shot at it. First thing I'd like to do is give a shout out to Commissioner Wright's husband, Jean, who was just recently given the Outstanding Program Alumni from his alma mater, I'll get that right, Augusta University, Family Medical College of Georgia, and the College of Allied Health Sciences. And his expertise is medical illustration. And I know y'all went to, I believe, a reunion.
Alumni weekend.
And that must have been a very nice surprise for Gene. So give him our congratulations. And I just went to my 60th class reunion from high school, and they didn't award me anything. So, the second thing I would like to bring to you all is we had a SPLOST vote on in the 2011 SPLOST package. It's project number 22, and it was for Youth Community Development Enrichment Facility Partnership. And I'm going to appoint an ad hoc committee this evening. And the charge to this committee is directed. They're directed to review the intent of the project statement approved by the electorate for the Youth Community Enrichment Facility Partnership and recommend a partner selection method to the Mayor and Commission within the next 90 days. And I'm going to read the wording of the initial project statement so you'll understand why I'm sending this to a committee, because it's somewhat ambiguous, but most of the SPLOST projects are very specific, and they can be implemented by our county staff through us. This one requires a partnership, so that's why I'm asking this committee to do this. The members of this committee will consist of Commissioners Mike Canby, Allison Wright, Jerry Neesmith, Andy Harrod, and Diane Bell, and will be chaired by Commissioner Hamby. And the wording of the initial project statement and the money that was allocated to this through SPLOST was $2,940,000. So it's a very nice chunk of money sitting out there to do some of the things that we're asked to do tonight. This, the Grand Slam, the things for our youth will hopefully be addressed, at least in part, by this. The Youth and Community Enrichment Facility Partnership will provide a new facility in partnership with one or more organizations, for youth development and family education programs in Athens-Clarke County. It is expected that the partner will provide capital funds to project, and this sounds awkward, but I'm reading the exact wording from the ballot, to project to support SPLOST funding. The project is envisioned to include components such as a computer lab, a technology center, classrooms, conference space, game room, teen center, half gymnasium, associated administrative and operation areas, and an exterior stage and sports field. And the wording says such as, so it's not dictating that all of these things will be done, because of course they couldn't be done with $3 million, even partners coming to the table with us and adding that much additional money. But anyway, I asked this committee to look at that intent and then come back to us with a plan as to how we will select that partner. And I think there's some partners out there willing and ready, and so we need to move forward with this. And so I'm going to ask y'all to bring something back within the next 90 days. And I've asked Manager Williams to assign whatever support staff y'all need to helping you with this project. I apologize for my voice tonight. The next thing I'd like to bring forward to us is I'm going to assign to LRC committee, that's the Legislative Review Committee, to amend section, to review and decide on the amending of section 6.3 of our alcohol ordinance, and that's the application requirements so that they'll agree with state requirements. And this has to do with corporations that have more than one location, and the Aldi's issue is what brought this to our attention. And I have Housing Authority reappointments to announce to you tonight. Frank Platt, I'm reappointing for another 5-year term. Patricia Stevens, these are just 1-year terms, and I'm reappointing her to be the resident representative. And the last thing I'll bring to you is I want to remind everybody, vote. Early voting is open now. Voter registration office right here next door to us, and between 8 and 5, and I'm not sure how long that goes. Does anybody here have the dates that you can tell me?
The Friday before.
May 16th, including the 12th, which is the Saturday.
To May when, Kelly?
18th.
Through May the 18th, business days, and then that includes one Saturday, which is the 12th. Is that right? So I urge all of you to vote early and often. But it's very important that you vote, and if you don't make it in the early voting, please go to the polls on May 22nd, because we've got some important decisions to make. And with that, I'll see if anybody else has anything for us. Mr. Williams?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Maddox?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Bierman?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay. Well, we're going to receive information from our commissioners, and we'll start with Ms. Bell and go around this way and end up with Mr. Harrod.
I think tonight all I'm going to do is say, wow. I mean, that's a bunch of stuff to absorb for an evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Tamby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it. And there were some interesting things heard tonight, but one thing in particular, since we have our budget coming up next week, I would like to learn about the Grand Slam program, how much it cost for us to put that on when it was ongoing, and just the number of people it served and whatnot, and why it is that we don't fund it anymore. So anyway, budget's coming up, so it's a good time to talk about that particular program that, from what we heard tonight, seems to have some added benefit. So I guess we have our budget meeting next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Tuesday at 6, Alice, Commissioner, right? Is that what time it starts?
5:30. I think it's before the work
5:30?
session.
Oh.
I'm looking around to see if anybody's been here long enough to know when that ended. How long ago did? 2010. Yeah.
Karina's back there.
Karina, 2010? 2010.
Okay. Well, if we can look at our budget and see where we stand this year and see the impact of that program, that would be very helpful.
Well, that is something that, for those of you who are watching and listening, that we're trying very hard to do, is to address some of these issues with our youth. And Karina, I know how much work and involvement you put into it. You're on our youth development committee, aren't you? Well, I thought you were on the committee because I see you every time I'm there. So, but thank you for all your interest and work that you do.
And Madam Mayor, I just got one more thing too. I know a lot of discussion tonight was about extending the moratorium on Reese Street, and I know we have an agenda item coming up next month that actually is going to use the $25,000 that we put in the budget last year to help determine what it is that Reese Street is going to be. How it is that we can help Reese Street. You know, obviously, there's been some fits and starts about some things during this past year that haven't worked. You know, we haven't. I mean, it's kind of been all over the map. Is it going to be a historic district? Is it going to be downzoned? What is it going to be? And we've never gotten really some clarification on why that is, or how that is. It's completely different than what is going on in Millage Circle or Castilia, simply because. We came at it with the help of Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Bell from a game plan early on. You know, this is what we're asking staff to do. Look at the historic possibilities, the historic district possibilities for this area, and come back to us with a report. We put the same amount of money in that report as we've done Reese Street. That game plan, that initial game plan, right off the bat, hasn't been assessed for Reese Street, and now we're looking at doing it. So I just want to make that clear distinction. Did I make the points I needed? I mean, Manager Reddish, or I'm sorry, the mayor has got me thinking Manager Reddish, Manager Williams, who does a much better job than Manager Reddish, by the way.
Manager Reddish doesn't even come to work.
Yeah,
He's probably used to it because I do that to him a lot.
Manager Williams, is there something I'm missing there? I mean, I think the purpose of this $25,000 that we're looking at is to determine from the residents, from the people who actually live on Reese Street and around there, what it is they would like to see happen. And
Yes.
that has not been done up to this point.
That's the plan, that we would bring a facilitator in and talk about the issues that are, confronting the residents, hear from them, give them some information if there are questions that they don't understand about process, and bring that information back to the mayor and commission for you to take further action if you saw fit.
And what time frame would you anticipate that being done? 3 months, is that what we?
Yes, sir. We would, of course, bring on a facilitator. That might take a month and a half or so, and then we would probably about a 30, 45-day process to engage several meetings to give the residents, different times and opportunities to make the meetings.
Okay, and I would say this, that if there was a time where you wanted to do a historic district within that area, like we're looking at over on Castilia and Millage Circle, we have a 90-day delay demolition process that can apply to some structures that basically puts a moratorium on it in that sort of way as well. So I'm looking forward to moving forward on seeing what the residents want for the Reese Street area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neesmith.
Commissioner, you covered the waterfront pretty well. Thank you.
Oh, did?
Yeah. I'm sure there's people at home going, okay, you got, over $2 million in this SPLOST money, and you're trying to figure out.
Almost 3, yeah.
Yeah. Why can't you do the Grand Slam? Well, the problem is, just to let people know, that it has to be used for capital improvements. It can't be used for services and labor and that sort of thing. So that's why that money has to be focused on a capital improvement. I want to thank the staff once again for all their responsiveness in recent issues in my district. We are looking forward to the trucks getting back into Huntington Park. Blaine, they started and then they left, and folks in Huntington Park are very disappointed that they left. They want it finished. I don't know how that happens, but Drew's aware of it. But they have a neighborhood celebration this weekend, and it looked like we were going to get their streets paved in time for that celebration. So doesn't look good for us to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope that I remember this correctly, but I think one of the reasons that Grand Slam was discontinued was we had a very dynamic individual who was organizing and leading it, and he was already retired, and I think he retired again. So basically, we lost some leadership there. That's probably not the only reason, but I think that contributed to it. So getting some more strong leadership would be important for a program like that. So we should be looking for strong leaders as well. The other thing I'd like to say is that there have been some concerns in the hospital area about people speeding and ignoring stop signs, and this happens with some regularity, and people voice their concerns, but it's reached a pretty critical point, I think. So we're going to be having a meeting, and I want to thank staff for being willing to meet with the neighbors. There's going to be someone from the police department and someone from transportation and public works, and someone from traffic engineering. And I think Commissioner Link's going to be there too, because it's an area that's kind of shared. But I want to thank staff for being open to having a meeting where the citizens are going to come and express their concerns as they should. And we'll see if we can make a positive change. But thanks to staff. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for recognizing my husband, Gene, and his award. I think we all know that alumni attachments, high school, college, are very strong, and University of Georgia is about to launch out some new alumni with this graduation season. So everybody be aware of the traffic and the gowns and the lines for photos at the arch. I want to thank Allison McCulloch and Emily, who's sitting with her tonight, with the Office of Government Operations. They've been very helpful orchestrating a presentation that Allison and I have been presented to give. It's going to be at the beginning of June at the International Town and Gown Association, and it's called Enhancing Partnership in the Classic City. And Allison and I will be presenting that, and Emily has been a master force with the multimedia presentation that we'll be giving, and I look forward to reporting how that went at our next gathering.
Where's that going to be?
That's going to be in Columbus, Ohio, with hosting with the Ohio State University. Again, the town and gowns are always matched up appropriately, so I look forward to bringing back some good information as well as presenting the good works that we're doing in our partnerships here.
Right. Ms. Link?
Yeah, I want to address some of the stuff that folks brought behind the podium. First of all, the EMS, we requested some data from them. Have we gotten that data yet from National EMS?
No. We've
No.
gotten their average times, their mean times.
Okay, but there's still data that we've requested that's not yet been presented. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
think there's
you.
a question as to what's included in that data, and so wanting to be sensitive to
The HIPAA.
the HIPAA,
Yeah. Okay.
and not violate any
Okay.
laws in that regard. So
So is it mean or average? Because I think they gave us average. And I believe Andy asked for mean, didn't you? Is that?
Mean and median.
Median, yeah. I also want to address Grand Slam. I know when we had our work session presentation from Leisure Services, I had asked about it and if there were plans to revive a program like that. And Ken mentioned that they would be bringing something up. So I haven't had a chance to look at the budget yet, but I'm hoping that there will be some more enhanced youth program because it's definitely needed. I mean, I hear about Grand Slam all the time. I have for years now, and it would be great if we could get that up and running again. And I also want to talk about Reese Street. First of all, I want to thank the folks who came down here. Unfortunately, there are quite a few folks who live there that are unable to come down to the meetings. We've got a lot of elderly folks who have long, multi-generational ties to the neighborhood, and several of them are very ill right now or taking care of ill family members. But I do want to thank Commissioner Gertz and Commissioner Neesmith and Commissioner Bailey, who have been very supportive all along of this neighborhood and of efforts that I've been begging for to protect it. This is a diverse neighborhood with some competing interests. You have new residents, new homeowners, you have very old residents with multi-generational ties, and then you have rental properties, and it's difficult. This is not your typical, this is not 5 Points. They don't have a neighborhood association. They don't have a listserv. People work odd hours or don't leave the house after dark. This is going to need special treatment. We did have some neighborhood residents who had offered to lead a neighborhood process, and that went nowhere. And when we realized that was going nowhere, Commissioner Gertz and I met with folks from the College of Environmental Design who had brought forth a proposal to lead a community input process, and then they rescinded that proposal. Apparently, policy changed at the university, and they'll no longer be engaging in those kind of community projects. So there have been fits and starts and delays, and this is a special neighborhood, and it doesn't fall under your traditional historic designation. That might not be the end goal, but we need to find out what the end goal is, and we need an outside consultant to come in and do the kind of one-on-one community outreach, and that means going door to door, talking to folks face to face on their front porches, and really understanding the history of the neighborhood and the needs of those who live there, and doing what's right for this community. Athens does have a long history of displacing our African American community. Entire neighborhoods have been razed for apartment buildings and student housing and all kinds of projects. And we don't want to see this happen in this neighborhood. It's pretty clear the way zoning has gone. 20 years ago, the way this neighborhood was zoned, it was targeted for future student housing. And, that kind of discriminatory zoning process we need to make amends. We need to make it right. And I'm looking forward. I hope that we can extend this moratorium. And I know that Commissioner Neesmith and Bailey and Gertz have supported that. So I hope I can get the further support to extend the moratorium before any of these buildings are torn down, because they won't be subject to that 90-day review. They've already had their 90-day chance. So if we can extend that moratorium, we can save a block of this community while we take a look and find out what we need to do to save it.
Mr. Gertz.
Just a couple of very brief items, Madam Mayor. I'm also supportive of finding some kind of youth engagement opportunity during the summertime, something the model of Grand Slam. Also want to thank Transportation Public Works staff for working with myself and with particularly attendees of First AME on the corner of Hull and Doherty. They came up with a couple solutions to improve the situation over there, one of which is taken care of already and one of which will be coming to a future agenda item. And finally, I want to thank everybody that was associated with Twilight Criterium, both on the nonprofit side, who put on a fabulous event, but also on the public side, it was amazing how quickly you wouldn't have known that there were 20,000 people downtown watching a race. So thanks to staff for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to point out, just in response to something that Commissioner Link said, I wasn't actually approached. I don't know if the other commissioners that weren't mentioned, I wasn't actually approached about a moratorium. So, and I do want to point out that staff was asked initially to stay in the background and not to be participating in this, that this was something that she and several other people were going to try to move forward. And yeah, there have been fits and starts, but I don't want to throw staff under the bus. I think they've certainly gone forward and done what they can do, and now it's going to be our turn to address it through the next agenda item. So just want to make a point of that on record. I also want to point out the Grand Slam, and I remember when it was here because I grew up here, and I remember it was a very popular program. But I know that we already have, I can't imagine that we don't already have our leisure service facilities program for the summer already. I guess I'm wondering whether or not the school system wouldn't be a logical choice, because they have two high school, at least, well, not just high school, the middle schools have auditoriums or basketball courts and stuff. Perhaps that would be a relationship and a partnership that we could look to as well. Maybe we can provide some funding, they can provide the space. So that should be something I think we should look at as well. And then I would like to finally invite everyone to the Marigold Festival, May 12th in Winterville. It's been going on for a little bit better than 40 years. It includes a parade, a 10K run, kids areas, craft, and music all day long. And I hope everyone will consider coming out and attending it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Entertain a motion for adjournment?
No,
I'm sorry. Oh, Andy.
No, we will not entertain a motion to
Yes,
till
we
I've
will,
had my
Andy.
3 minutes.
I move we adjourn.
I don't know that you get 3 minutes.
Be quiet.
We almost made it.
Almost,
Yeah, almost
not
made
quite.
it.
Not quite. Several things. So we did have our first East Side Spring Fling earlier, I guess last month now, which the weather wasn't the most cooperative, but at the end of the day, cooperated a little bit, and a lot of people came out. It was a good sense of community being created there, and I'd like to thank our leisure services staff, our police officers that came out and helped, and all of our volunteers who did a great job. We had food trucks, we had some really cool bands, so I think that was a great success, and we look forward to doing it next year. The other thing I wanted to say is to put a bug in the ear of the manager and his office. So obviously we have the census coming up 2020, and it's never too early to start planning for that. If you look at the map of Georgia in terms of areas of the state where there were undercounts or difficult to count populations at the last census, there were some areas of our community where that was a particular issue. And I think it's really important that we make sure that we get as complete a count of our residents in the Athens-Clarke County community as possible, really for two reasons. One, obviously, electoral districts are drawn based upon population, so it's really important that if we are going to have an accurate representation of political will in the community, that we have an accurate count of where people are living. At a more self-interested level, perhaps, it's estimated that for every individual who we don't count in the census, we lose close to $1,400 per year in federal funds. You multiply that by 10 years between every census, and you multiply that by, for every 100 people that we don't count, we lose about $1.4 million in federal funding over that 10-year cycle. Our community could do a lot with 1.4 million or 2.8 or however many federal dollars we could get by having an accurate count. So I know the census is 2 years away. I know that there are a lot of things taking place at the moment at the state level, and it's not really appropriate for us to do anything locally right now in terms of a kind of a public face of this, because we need to still be in the planning stage. But I just wanted to get that on the radar screen. I know we had, at the last census, we had some local committees that were involved in getting the word out and making sure that happened. I just want to make sure we do our very level best to get as many people counted as possible, both for issues of political districting, but more importantly, for every person we don't count, we lose a lot of federal funds. And we're paying the taxes, they come out of our paychecks, they go to Washington, and we might as well get them back. So with that, I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, guys.
Forget about those.